Have you ever heard of a deal so bad, it was literally named after the guy who made it? We're talking about a purchase so ridiculous, so widely mocked, that everyone called it a folly. But what if that same folly turned out to be one of the greatest deals in history? Well, let's dive into the wild story of the Alaska Purchase.
Our story actually starts in Russia, with a very stressed-out Tsar Alexander II. He's looking at this massive territory he owns over in North America, and he's just so over it. It's a gigantic frozen headache, so the big question for him was, what do you do with a continent-sized headache?
Okay, so picture this. It's 1867. For Russia, their big American territory isn't a prize anymore, it's a huge problem. They're in a really tight spot. Holding on to this enormous piece of land all the way across the Bering Strait is becoming way more trouble than it's worth. They need it out, and they need it out fast.
So why on earth would you sell off a territory that big? Well, it really boiled down to a few key things. First off, Russia was flat broke after fighting the Crimean War. Second, trying to manage this super remote place was a logistical nightmare. And third, and this is a big one, they were seriously worried their rivals, the British, would just waltz in from Canada and take it. So their brilliant solution? Sell it to the Americans. It solves their money problems, gets rid of a headache, and it really ticks off the British. A win-win-win.
So Russia's got a for sale sign on Alaska. Now all they need is a buyer. And this is where our main character, U.S. Secretary of State William H. Seward, steps onto the stage. Now, Seward was a guy with one massive driving vision for America: make it bigger.
You see, Seward was a huge believer in this idea that was super popular at the time called manifest destiny. The thinking was basically that the United States was destined. It was its destiny to expand all across the continent. It wasn't just about grabbing land. It was about spreading American influence and pushing back against European powers like Great Britain and, well, Russia.
So you can imagine, when the Russian minister kind of casually mentioned that this giant frozen territory was up for grabs, Seward's ears must have perked right up. For him, this wasn't just a simple real estate deal. No, this was a grand move on the global chessboard. This was America's destiny in action.
And this was the price he landed on. $7.2 million. Now, you got to remember, this was just 2 years after the Civil War. The country was buried in debt. So $7 million, that was an absolutely astronomical amount of money. The public was not thrilled. But wait,
Because here's where it gets kind of mind-blowing. When you do the math, that price tag works out to about 2 cents an acre. 2 cents for a piece of land more than twice the size of Texas. It was, hands down, one of the most insane bargains in the history of the world.
And get this, Seward was so fired up, so eager to lock this deal down, that he actually woke the Russian minister up in the middle of the night to get it done. The treaty was signed and sealed at 4 o'clock in the morning. He just knew what a steal this was, and he was not letting it get away.
So Seward is probably feeling pretty great about himself, right? Thinking he's a hero? Well, the American public? Oh, they thought he was a complete fool. The backlash was immediate, it was brutal, and it was hilarious.
This quote pretty much nails the feeling across the country. People were just outraged. The nation had just been through a horrible war, and now this guy was spending millions of dollars on what everyone saw as a useless chunk of ice. They just didn't get the vision. All they saw was the price tag.
And the press just had a field day with this. The nicknames they came up with were brutal. Seward's Folly, of course, Seward's Icebox. My personal favorite is Wall Russia. I mean, that's creative. They didn't just mock the deal, they went after Seward himself, basically calling him a big, dumb, stinky idiot who got swindled by the Russians.
And here's the thing, for almost 30 years it looked like the critics were right. Alaska was just this cold, remote, and seemingly empty place. Seward's big purchase was nothing but a national punchline. But then, something happened. Something that changed absolutely everything.
This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? You see that long period of doubt where Alaska's just the icebox? And then, bam, 1896 hits. The Klondike Gold Rush kicks off and the entire story flips upside down. And later on, the discovery of all that oil, well, that just sealed the deal.
Yeah, in 1896, somebody yelled gold, and all of a sudden this frozen wasteland was the most popular place on the planet. 100,000 people stampeded north trying to make their fortune. You can just feel the excitement. Seward's Folly was suddenly looking a lot more like Seward's jackpot.
And the gold? That was only the beginning. Later in the 20th century, they found oil. Not just a little bit of oil, we're talking massive oil fields that turned Alaska into an economic powerhouse.
The land that was bought for 2 cents an acre would end up generating hundreds of billions of dollars.
And so, over time, the way people saw the Alaska Purchase did a complete 180. The folly became a masterstroke. The guy they made fun of, he ended up being hailed as a genius with incredible foresight.
This table just says it all, right? Look at the difference. Every single bad thing they said about it back then has been totally flipped. What was a waste of money is now an unbelievable bargain. What they called Russia is now known as the last frontier. Turns out, history had the final say. Now, William Seward, he never lived to see it. He died back in 1872, long before any of the gold or oil was found. But you just have to imagine his ghost is out there somewhere enjoying the last laugh with a very satisfying, centuries-long, "I told you so."
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. The story of Seward's folly is more than just a cool history lesson. It's really a story about the difference between short-term criticism and long-term vision. And it makes you wonder, what modern-day follies are out there right now just waiting for their moment to pay off?